Good morning. It is Wednesday, October 29th, 2014. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, U.S.-Israeli relations hit a new low with a slug of words as a White House official reportedly refers to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as a coward. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says his country will recognize the results of controversial separatist elections in eastern Ukraine, which the rebels plan to hold there on November 2nd. And later on the show, we will hear all about Iran's vampire western, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Yes, we'll tell you all about that. Good morning, I'm Yael Levi. We begin with Jerusalem. And actually, all the implications coming out of it. The United States blasted Israel for pledging to build 1,000 more settler homes in Arab East Jerusalem earlier this week, saying any such move would be incompatible with peace efforts. The strong condemnation accompanied by harsh criticism from the EU and a call for a UN emergency meeting by Jordan following Israel's announcement of the planned construction. But despite all this tension in the headlines, including some very harsh words supposedly said about Benjamin Netanyahu by the White House staff, specifically calling him a coward. In spite of all that, Defense Minister Moshe Yaalon in the United States has just struck a deal with Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel, finalizing terms for Israel's purchase of a second squadron of F-35 fighter jets in recent days. So, what does it all mean? To try and figure it out, let's take a look of the following report and break it down after that.
What began as a violent escalation in East Jerusalem has turned into yet another diplomatic crisis, which now, as expected, has become an international issue. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's decision to build 1,060 new housing units in Jewish neighborhoods located beyond the Green Line in Jerusalem raised harsh condemnations from all over, including the U.S.
Israel's leaders have said they would support a pathway to two-state solution, but moving forward with this type of action would be incompatible with the pursuit of peace, and that is certainly a message that we are conveying directly.
Netanyahu himself has outright rejected the condemnations, calling the arguments disconnected from reality.
When Abbas incites to murder Jews in Jerusalem, the international community is silent. And when we build in Jewish neighborhoods that everybody knows will remain in Israel as part of the peace deal, the world fumes.
Jordan, meanwhile, thinks otherwise, and following the call of Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas had requested an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council to discuss the Israeli plans. But these plans that are making such waves might not be so crucial. Only last August, during Operation Protective Edge, Israel announced it would recognize the over 988-acre Gvot settlement to the West Bank as state land. The IDF then said there was no Palestinian claim on the area in question, but those against the decision could file their objections within 45 days. The deadline was over more than a week ago, but it was extended. Why? The answer is vague. A request of a 4-month extension was submitted to the head of the administration. After reviewing their request, it was decided to allow a 30-day extension for the applicants to utilize their right to appeal to the fullest. The settlers feel they are being fooled by the government, who only uses the settlement building issue as a tool of provocation.
When there's a scheduled discussion, there's a deadline, and until then, you have to do what you have to do. By the scheduled time, it needs to be settled and the process should be continued. An extension of 30 days is in favor of the Palestinians for no reason, and the Israeli Prime Minister and the civil administration are wrong for not stopping it and proceeding with the plans.
Back then, the decision raised massive international uproar as well, but now the provocative announcement is remaining just that, with no actions on the ground to back it up. Is this the case with the current decision as well? Is this sensitive issue only being utilized for political strategy? We may not know for a while, at least not until the next political storm.
We are joined in studio by the spokesperson for the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Paul Hirson. Paul, good morning to you.
Lovely to be here.
By former Consul General in New York, Ambassador Colette Avital. Good morning to you. And by Amir Oren, Senior Defense Analyst for Haaretz newspaper. Good morning, all of you. Before we begin, and of course the topic is the worsening relations, or what many are referring to as, hit a new low, the biggest crisis ever between Israel and the U.S. This is what Jen Psaki, who is the State Department spokesperson, had to say yesterday in reaction to Prime Minister Netanyahu's words about, Israel going at it on its own when it comes to Jerusalem. I'm ad-libbing here. Let's hear what Jan Psaki had to say.
Our policy has been clear for many administrations. The policy continues to oppose unilateral steps that would prejudge the outcome of negotiations on Jerusalem. Certainly, Secretary Kerry, I mentioned this a little bit yesterday, but he spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu on Saturday. He conveyed very clearly what our view is on settlements. And the fact remains that if actions are taken that are not conducive to peace, it makes it very difficult to not only return to a negotiation, but to obviously reach a two-state solution.
Paul Hirson, spokesperson for the Israeli Foreign Ministry. I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to put you on the spot, and I apologize in advance for that. This is Jan Psaki using some, harsh lingo. This morning, the Middle East wakes up to an article in The Atlantic by Jeffrey Goldberg. Mm-hmm. Jeffrey Goldberg, very prolific, a very well-known and experienced political writer in the United States, is quoting a senior White House official speaking about Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and calling him, I'm going to have to quote this, a chicken shit. He basically, and Jeffrey Goldberg says that the White House, that official specifically has said that the bad thing about Netanyahu is that he won't do anything to reach an accommodation with the Palestinians or with the Sunni Arab states. The only thing he's interested in is protecting himself from political defeat. He's not Rabin, he's not Sharon, he's certainly no Begin, he's got no guts. This is in The Atlantic. This is making headlines all over Twitter and this morning all around, the political spectrum as well as the White House, cadre of reporters, and definitely in Israel. What would be a reaction to that? And this is a low that I think nobody can actually, say is not a very bad time between Israeli-U.S. relations.
Well, I have a very similar job to Jan Psaki, and I can only imagine that the anonymous American official right now is sitting alone in his or her room, cringing at the idea that somebody will discover who he or she is that said that. I know that feeling. I would say to you this, look, to the best of my knowledge, there are two issues which we have differences of opinions with on the Americans. The defense minister said it just a few days ago, okay, the issue of settlements, the issue of Jerusalem. With all due respect, both to my prime minister and to the president of the United States, the difference of opinion on Jerusalem goes back, if I'm not mistaken, to 1948, before either of them were born. And the difference of opinion on settlements goes back also quite a way to 1967 or 68, whenever it was that we first began establishing communities over the Green Line.
But that said, it's a difference of opinions, and these are very harsh words. I have difference of opinions with my husband. When we reach this level of lingo, it's bad. I'm asking, Colette Avital, you were part of, Ambassador Avital, pardon me, you were part of, foreign policies service for Israel. When we read words like this, how bad is this? What does this mean also? And we have to look at that in the spectrum of within the several weeks, Iran and the United States are going to try and reach some form of an agreement. This doesn't bode well for anybody at this point, does it?
Certainly not now. The thing is, probably, and we're seeing that this is a very, very low point in the relations with the United States, I would say, not on a national level, on a much more of a personal level. It's true that the United States has always opposed, from the Rogers Plan onward, the policy of settlement, the policy of annexation, and has always protested against it. But look, there are things, and I have to say that I agree with the Prime Minister of Israel on one thing. He is not there to make American foreign policy, but Israeli policy. Now, we've always known that all Israeli governments have decided that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. The question is, how do you do it? Do you have to get into acts of provocation? Do you have to get people to start building inside the Arab quarters in Jerusalem? Teddy Kollek was the wonderful mayor of Jerusalem, and he did build quite a few, I think 10 neighborhoods around Jerusalem, and I don't remember any international or American great protest. He knew how to do it. I think the thing in policy and in politics and in diplomatic behavior is to be able to do things in such a manner that you don't get people a sore eye, that you don't provoke them, and even certainly if you want to defend the Israeli interests as you see them, I'm not sure that I see the same way, and if you want to have Jerusalem recognized once and for all as the capital of Israel, and it's never been recognized, neither by the United States nor by any other country in the world.
By the Israelis as the
Yeah,
capital
this
of
is
Israel.
not the way to do it. And every day we hear, and it's not only Jerusalem, every day we hear of another declaration. We're going to build 2,000 units, 1,060 units. I'm not even sure that they're building them, but I've stopped counting how many of these declarations and why on earth is it necessary to be on a collision course with the United States, especially now.
And is this a collision course? I want to go back to your point very shortly, which is it's a very valid one of how things are being done. But is this a collision course? And this is where I personally, as a journalist, am confused, because this is a terrible, moment of slug of words between Israel and the U.S. And yet we hear yesterday that a deal was finalized, and for that, Oren, I'm glad you're here with us, between Israel and the United States, Yalon and Chuck Hagel, Israeli defense minister, and the Secretary of Defense, finalizing this huge deal of how many F-35s are going to be sold?
It's not really finalized. They initialed one document in a long chain, but Lockheed Martin, the producer of the plane, and the U.S. Department of Defense have announced that the first two F-35s of the first batch, the first 19, in the first squadron that the Israeli Air Force will get starting in 2 years' time, that they are going to be produced in the coming batch that is going to be produced for the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, Norway, and other countries.
That will take time.
That will take time, and this is part of a long-term, deeply held American commitment to Israeli security. This is distinct from what is happening over the peace process. And as a matter of fact, this is a bedrock part of American policy in order to show Israelis that, yes, you can count on us, even if you have to withdraw from territories and dismantle settlements, because the most important ingredient of Israeli security is the Israeli Defense Forces, and within it, the Israeli Air Force. And the F-35 is going to be the most advanced airplane in the entire world, and without it, Israeli defense capabilities and deterrence will fail. This is something permanent. It has nothing to do with the frustration expressed. Paul indicated that by saying him or her indicated some senior official of the female type in the National Security Council, but never.
Females don't use such language.
Only off the record, not for attribution.
We're talking about the famous, slug of words.
And the word was chicken, not bull. So maybe it was more feminine.
We're theorizing who said what. It is. I mean, but going back just for a second for this defense, the F-35 is actually, when you say the most advanced, Israel would be one of the only country in the Middle East to have it. No.
Right now it will. But the Americans are going to produce 3,100 planes over the next few decades. This is going to be the mainstay of all air forces. Obviously, Saudi Arabia would want one, the United Emirates would want one, and Israel would have its own advantage because this is a fantastic plane. It's the avionics suit that is going to have. You may send, if you go back to the Oz-Iraq reactor in Baghdad in 1981, rather than send 8 F-16s accompanied by 5 F-15s, you can send 1 or 2 F-35 to do this job.
Demolish a nuclear plant.
Risk fewer pilots and get better results.
Unbelievable. So, and this is the one thing, Paul, back to you, the man we're putting on the spot today. I mean, clearly that, security deals between Israel and the United States are still being signed, which, is, to all of you, I'm saying that I think that's the irony of the relationship between the two countries.
Yeah, but let's think a bit about the future. The question is what will happen after this long dispute and deepening crisis between the two administrations. The question is what will happen after the elections now, what you call, I think, the midterm elections in November. And that is the question. Will we continue to have the same political political support that we had until now. Can we count all the time, or can we ask the Americans, after we insult them day after day, after we call them names also, can we count on them to continue to cast their veto at the United Nations Security Council? I mean, this is the big question, and we've got to think about not only, because if they will next time not cast their veto, we will remain alone in the world.
And that
we
is,
are being isolated.
It's a major question raised also by Jeffrey Goldberg at The Atlantic, Mr. Hirshens of the Foreign Ministry, saying that there is talk about the United States considering basically lifting its support from Israel and the UN. And in addition to that, also, he's quoting people from within the Israeli government saying that there seems to be an agenda within the Netanyahu and the current government and the foreign ministry to actually, they've written off the Obama administration, that after November 5th, that they're just that Netanyahu intends to just speak to Congress or just speak to the Senate if that turns more Republican.
But he's done that before.
Well, if I can, I read Jeffrey Goldberg's article, and I'm not going to speak for him, but I would say this: both the indication that we saw with the signing of this contract in the defense industries. It's true that we live in a different era, and that we live in the era of the internet and of I-24 and of Twitter, and everything is out there and open, and people perhaps need to be a little bit more sensitive about what they say and how they say. But every single metric out there, and we measure them all, whether it's the defense cooperation or joint military maneuvers or intelligence sharing, or in the academia, be it foreign study abroad or overseas sabbaticals, joint government investment in research and development, particularly in the sciences, cultural exchange.
I just don't think we should take it for granted. It's true now.
Absolutely. Nothing is taken for granted.
The question is, we cannot take it for granted.
Nothing is taken for granted.
And the deepening of this crisis may have an impact, may have consequences. And this is something we've got to think about. Not only think about how exactly we're going to please the Israeli public, and these are by showing muscle and saying, we're going to do what we think is great. This is something we have to judge. This is our biggest asset.
If I may jump in,
please.
Colette also served in Boston.
I did.
Where obviously there's a great concentration of Ivy League
Harvard,
universities.
MITs,
right.
whatnot. I mean, that's
and this is where I met Bibi at the time.
Right.
The intelligence.
At MIT, right. But public opinion polls show constantly over the last few years that students at higher education institutes and youth in general turn more and more anti-Israeli. And this is, of course, the leadership of the future. So what we have right now is the fruit of earlier generations. What is going to happen a decade or two from now if this goes on? If Israel is perceived as being an occupier, being reluctant to sign a grand compromise with its neighbors, whether it's true or not. This is the perception. The next generation is going to turn vehemently anti-Israeli.
A lot of the mainstream Jewish community is getting tired, and getting tired means not supporting Israel anymore politically, and not supporting financially some of the institutions here. And this is something we have to also think long-term or even short-term.
And short-term, speaking of that, again, Paul, the man I'm putting on the spot, I'm so sorry, Iran.
Yeah.
The clock is ticking on that deal, and I'm looking at the slug of words in the Atlantic all over the place. This is what, 3-4 weeks before the
3 weeks.
3 weeks, okay? Isn't this going to have an effect also on how the United States is going to try and push forward a deal, or any kind of attempts that Israel is going to try to do and stop a deal between the United States, between the world powers and Iran that is imminent within 3 weeks?
I don't see that at all. I think that we have a very intimate, open and honest conversation, not only with the Americans, but primarily with the Americans, also with other members of the P5+1 who are talking with Iran. They know our opinion very well. Look, we're not at the table. We're not part of that conversation, and we've never said that we are a part of that conversation.
But very much part of the consequences to listen to the Israeli Prime Minister.
I think that most people around the world give the Prime Minister a significant amount of credit for the fact that that conversation is being had in the first place. They are fully aware of our opinion. The truth of the matter is, whether the issues of timing or the issues of nuance, that may be, but I think that we've gotten to the point where we are today, that Iran almost begged to come to the table and have a conversation, primarily because of Israel. And I think that that's something that we should be quite proud of. We haven't seen the end result of those conversations, but I think that it's clear the amount of pressure that the Obama administration has put on Iran. They are the people, first and foremost, who put a very significant package of sanctions on Iran. They have interests which are in sync with ours.
You have two experienced diplomats here, and in diplomaties, full and frank and an honest exchange of views means that there was a fierce debate, there is disagreement, there is a world of difference between an understanding and an agreement. And if Netanyahu tried to show the world that it's not only Israel's interest which is at stake in the negotiations with Iran, and that there is a lot of similarity between Israel's interest and the American interest and the global interest, he is now falling behind, because one of Israel's main strategic assets has been the perception that the United States and Israel will always stand together. Right. And this is less and less so.
No, if I may, I must just say that I grudgingly acknowledge being a diplomat. I've never yet been accused of being diplomatic. You quoted me as saying that I said full and frank. I didn't. I said intimate and open.
Okay.
That is, I mean, South Africans are so polite.
Exactly, incredibly polite.
But,
Israelis,
yeah.
But finally,
I'd like to say a word of what's happening in Jerusalem. There's what may be the beginning of an intifada, this time of children. Some of East Jerusalem is burning. Is that the time, number one, to come out with these statements which only are inflammatory? Yeah. And is that the time also to have a crisis with the United States, when we should have the United States behind us?
Definitely, words to listen to and take notice of. But Paul Hirschson of the Israeli Foreign Ministry, Amir Orn of Haaretz, and Coletta Vital, formerly Israeli counsel to the UN. Thank you so much for joining me this morning as we move on.
Thank you.
While the second nurse to contract Ebola in the United States has been declared free of the virus yesterday, the situation in West Africa where the Ebola outbreak is killing thousands of people is yet to be contained. According to the UN authorities, they are having trouble figuring out how many more people are getting the virus in Liberia and Sierra Leone, and where the hotspots are in those countries, which is harming also the efforts to get control of the raging deadly outbreak. Let's take a look at the following report and take it from there.
Quarantine is a subject of criticism in the United States. The American nurse returned from Sierra Leone, where she provided treatment to sick Ebola patients, has finally been authorized to go home. In spite of an absence of symptoms, she was quarantined in a tent adjacent to a hospital as a preventive measure. This made her very angry. The scandal reached the White House, which urged the New Jersey governor to lift the quarantine.
Because of her hard work, we are going to stop this disease in its tracks in West Africa, and that is the only way that we can eliminate the risk that this disease poses to the American people. So her service and commitment to this cause is something that should be honored and respected, and I don't think we do that by making her live in a tent for 2 or 3 days.
The decision was taken on Friday by 3 states, including New Jersey and Illinois. As Ebola continues to spread in West African nations, many experts see these preventive measures as discouraging potential volunteers.
It's very important that healthcare workers who come leave their families, leave their relatively comfortable lives, and visit here and are willing to put themselves in the vicinity of Ebola.
These are fears that are sowing discord in a crisis situation. The New York mayor has strongly criticized the decision of the New Jersey governor, saying that the nurse in question does not present a risk, but rather is a humiliated heroine.
And we are joined now from Liberia by Peg Ross, Vice President of Global Human Resources, PCI. Peg, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. I think that over the course of the last several weeks, many people in the Western world were speaking about Ebola only in context of New York, Europe, because, very few cases have reached, sadly so, the Western world. But there are things that we cannot let go of, and that's what's going on in Liberia, and you are there. What are the main problems right now with containing this horrible outbreak where it's really killing thousands of people?
Well, I think one of the main issues is we just need more treatment facilities. And the U.S. government and other agencies are working really hard to build more Ebola treatment units and bring them online. The Liberian Ministry of Health and Social Welfare is doing really an amazing job with providing healthcare workers and trying to contain the outbreak. But we have, 600 beds coming online in the next month, and we probably need 2,000. And we're not alone. I think Guinea and Sierra Leone are in similar circumstances.
No, and so they said this morning, the UN said that the problem in Liberia, Sierra Leone, exactly as you mentioned, is the fact that, there more resources are needed, but also that they're having a very hard time, and I'm wondering if that's happening in Liberia, to contain the outbreak. And what is being done on the ground to try and, and help the people and help contain the outbreak of Ebola in Liberia, for example?
Well, I would have to say, I think Liberia is doing an amazing job. I've been here for almost a week now, and everyone is taking it very seriously. Wherever you go, whether it's to the office, to the grocery store, to a restaurant, there are chlorine and water stations to wash your hands outside. You get your temperature checked before you're allowed in. At the office, we are checked in the morning and the evening when we leave. We have to log our temperatures, and also I'm keeping track of where I go, who I see. But I think where this crisis is going to be contained is really at the community level, with messaging around Ebola prevention, how households can protect themselves, what to do if people have symptoms, where to take them. And I think that's really where the outbreak will stop. That's what's really needed. And I think the problem is that if someone has Ebola-like symptoms, it's very difficult, number one, to get them to a location, to a clinic that can assess whether it's Ebola or another disease that's very, very prevalent here, such as malaria. And sometimes people there's no space, and so people aren't being seen and not being treated.
Yeah. Peg, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. Amazing and blessed work that you're doing out there. Thank you for being with us this morning. And as we mentioned, indeed, it is Liberia, it is West Africa, where the problem is the most serious, or it needs to be contained. Thank you. Now, coming up next, following the elections in the Ukraine, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says the vote will legitimize the rebels in Donetsk. We'll take a closer look. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Good morning. Thank you for staying with us. I-24 News, where the place you should be. October 29th. Yes, two days before Halloween.
Yes.
That's where we say hello and good morning, folks, to Anthony Grant, who joins us daily to discuss the news you missed while scanning the headlines. Yes.
Well, I was shopping in the grocery store for Halloween candy yesterday.
Did you find any?
No, but what I did find were extremely high prices.
Yes.
Which brings me to my first headline of
the morning.
Thank
you.
Yes.
I'm happy to share that with everybody if you live in the Middle East or specifically in Tel Aviv.
And this was bouncing around Facebook and everything, but Israeli food prices are racing ahead of the OECD average. This is in Globe's big economic newspaper here. And this is kind of startling. A Knesset report finds that prices have risen 34% in Israel between 2005 and 2013, much higher than the OECD average.
I'm happy, by the way, just I'm saying, because Ruthie Sinai, senior news editor of I-24 News, is here with us. Aren't we happy that the 2011 demonstrations worked so well?
Yeah.
Right?
They really had an effect.
Put a dent in the prices.
Yeah, what happened or didn't happen. But, you know, it's in 2005, the story notes food prices in Israel were below the OECD average. So something has happened. Some people say a concentration of wealth in the hands of tycoons.
Yes, are we speaking about, you know, the 1% thinking? Yeah.
Something like that. But this is hitting a lot of people hard in the pocketbook. So, and this, of course, as that's happening in Israel, we have the story from The Guardian, which says that child poverty is up in more than half of the developed world since 2008, when the big global recession struck. Yeah, this is...
child poverty, more than half of the developed world.
Yeah, the number of kids entering poverty since 2008, it's 2.6 million more than the number lifted out of poverty since 2008.
And Israel ranks fourth.
Yeah, and on the OECD.
Really?
I think I saw that this morning also. Yeah. Israel ranks fourth.
Yeah. So these are things that one hopes that in Israel, for example, the Minister of the Economy, Naftali Bennett, and then we also have the Minister of Finance, Yair Lapid. We hope that they can spend less time posting things on Facebook and doing more to ameliorate the situation.
I think that was beautifully put.
Yes, well.
Yes, thank you. I think that was very well.
Yes,
very well said.
N'est-ce pas?
N'est-ce pas?
Anyway,
yes,
something that is on the mend, if not the economy, is Kim Jong-un's ankles. Yes. This is good news for
ankle.
Ankle. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Ankle surgery. South Korean officials say.
The South Korean spy agency basically has confirmed what everybody was thinking.
Yes, I'm sorry. I think the spy agency confirms an ankle surgery. Yes.
Yes.
But I mean, you would think. I mean, the guy disappeared.
For 40 days.
Yeah.
40 days.
So I mean, if he's like lying, you could have a picture of him in bed.
Well, I'm thinking that his wife, Ri Sol-ju, who I don't think is Jewish, maybe she may have wanted him to lay low. Because she's proud of her guy and wants him just to put the best image forward.
The best image forward.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
His best foot forward.
Touché.
Even though she's not Jewish. Yes.
She could be. Listen, Madonna. But anyway.
Golden moments there with Tony Grant. Yes. Moving on.
On a serious note.
Yes.
Actually, it's all serious. But a Sharq al-Awsat, very respected paper, gave this interesting headline. We talked about it the other day. The Lebanese military, after 4 days or so of pitched battles in a localized way in northern Lebanon, have halted what they're calling an ISIS attempt to establish an emirate in Tripoli.
Wow.
So we knew that there were clashes going on.
No, we knew there were clashes. I think there was even some footage that was shown. It was fierce.
And people like me were wondering why. I mean, not just the regular stuff, but the violence and all that.
Yes.
But no, apparently, according to this, that the ISIS people were thinking that they were trying to actually set up another sub-state, if you will.
Quote unquote, in Lebanon.
And if you look back further, there's been all these foreign donations, the UK, Saudi Arabia, to the Lebanese military. And thank goodness, you could say, in a way, because they have, for now, staved off this attempt for them to get their claws on.
More so, one can say that coalition forces are doing a job in Kobani, as it seems right now.
Yeah, but one can also say that, thank God for Hezbollah in this case.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go that far. But it's an interesting point. Let's talk about diplomatic tit for tats.
Yes, please do. Oh,
okay.
Yeah. As we have most of the morning.
Yeah,
yes.
Not in this part of the world. In Argentina,
the
Argentine ambassador to the UK, Alicia Castro, has gone ahead and continued to slam BBC star Jeremy Clarkson, the Top Gear guy, because he drove around Argentina last month with a license plate with the number H982FLK, like for Falklands. So she's saying that it was very insensitive.
Incredibly so.
There was a war, the Falklands War.
There was one of those, yes.
There is, of course, Argentina, they still regard the islands as the Las Islas Malvinas.
I know.
Sounds like a Madonna song, but it's not.
That was one of the main issues of that war.
The nomenclature. And it's a spat that continues to reverberate, many years after the actual hostilities subsided. And, the BBC guy is saying, well, it was just a coincidence.
Right.
I'm not sure about that.
I got to tell you, Top Gear, not just because I lived in the UK, but because I'm married to a man. Top Gear is a very annoying show.
It's always on.
And it's always on.
Yeah.
It's very successful.
It's like Duck Dynasty. You can't get away from it. Did you hear the one about the French culture minister? This is big news. Her name is Fleur Pellerin, and she doesn't like to read.
Really?
Yeah.
Quel scandale.
She hasn't read a book in 2 years.
2 years, yeah. Mon Dieu, says the British press. The French culture minister prompts outcry after she admits she hasn't read a single book in 2 years.
But she watches Home with the Kardashians diligently.
I don't know, but she didn't even know any books by France's new Nobel Prize winner, Patrick Modiano, which is adding insult to the cultural injury.
Has somebody called for her to resign?
Well, Twitter is a buzz.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't.
She had lunch with a guy and came away saying that he had a great sense of humor.
My God.
Wow.
At least that. He's okay. I mean, listen, Truth be told, I had no idea who he was. Okay,
Yeah.
I had no idea.
But you're not the French.
But I'm not the
minister.
French. Yeah,
I knew
Minister
who
of
he
Culture.
was.
You did?
Well, I used to live in France, so full disclosure.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay, well, at least we have somebody educated. At the
Oh,
table.
semi-educated.
Yes, semi-educated. Yes.
Well, in science news, and this is good to know for some French presidents out there, if you have sex with 21 women and you're a guy, it lowers your risk of prostate cancer.
I think that's a terrible headline.
At the same time?
Ostensibly not at the same time. Of course, this was a study done in Montreal, so you never know.
This is a terrible headline. This is a headline that opens the door to every male out there to say,
Terrible.
I'm sorry, I'm doing this for my health.
I'm doing it.
Okay?
I mean,
Come on. This is a bad headline. Bad headline.
It's in science news. You know, drops the risk by
here's the
by
excuse we're
1/3.
going to hear now from now on.
Popular science.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Did you hear about the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, who's trying to reinvent his image? Yeah.
Okay.
The new buzzword is tired but happy.
I should have come up with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beijing.
Beijing has rolled out this sort of propaganda campaign to boost his image, and they're trying to promote him as hardworking, efficient, and tired but happy. That's apparently the new Chinese way. You know?
That keeps me. That and a good cup of Joe keeps me going. Did I just say cup of Joe?
Yeah.
And sex with 21.
And with 21 women, they also
Well,
keeps
that'll
you
make you
healthy.
tired,
Yeah,
but
what's completely
happy.
that completely knocks out an apple a day, keeps the
the
doctor away.
How do you like them apples?
I like exactly. Oh my Lord, Tony, thank
Yes.
you. Stick around in the studio as we
you
move
bet.
on. Okay. On to our next topic. Russia has announced plans to recognize elections scheduled for next weekend by rebels in East Ukraine, defying the government in Kiev and indicating that the year-old crisis in the Ukraine is far from fading away. Now, to hear more about it, we're joined in studio by I-24 News senior editor Ruthie Sinai. Ruthie, good morning to you. Before anything else, let's take a look at the following report from the Ukraine.
Is Russia fueling tensions in Ukraine despite supposedly conciliatory statements? Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov declared his country will recognize separatist polls in Ukraine next weekend, and also the parliamentary elections which took place Sunday without the participation of residents from East Ukrainian territories.
We will recognize the results of this election because it is very important for us, for Ukraine, to finally have the authorities that are not fighting each other or are involved in the tug of war between the West and the East, but rather will deal with the real issues facing the country and will think how to ensure the unity of the country.
Later in the interview, Lavrov highlighted the Russian support of the upcoming November 2nd insurgents' elections in the self-proclaimed republics Donetsk and Luhansk.
We are assuming that the elections will be carried out as discussed, and we will, of course, recognize the results.
Moscow, which has thus far rejected accusations of standing behind Ukrainian pro-Russian separatists, presents in this statement one of the most overt acts of support to the People's Republics. The minister's remark angered senior Ukrainian officials, who said the Kremlin was undermining the peace deal it had itself sponsored in Minsk early September. In Kiev, officials insisted that such announcements continue to weaken trust in Russia as a reliable international partner. Pro-Western parties now dominate Ukraine's parliament following Sunday's election, but next Sunday's vote might determine Ukraine's territorial and political landscape.
Also joining us now from Moscow is Moscow Times journalist Gabrielle Tuto-Faber. Gabrielle, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Quick question now about this announcement from Sergei Lavrov. In the event, of course, that the separatists in Donetsk, these elections they're going to hold next week, of course, they might win. When Russia says it's going to support those, the outcome of those elections, what does that mean? They're going to support it with tanks?
What this means is that they will make a statement saying it recognizes the results. On a practical level, it remains unclear precisely what that will mean. The issue here, however, is that very recently Russia recognized the results of the Ukrainian election,
right.
Where there was a very low turnout in eastern Ukraine. So we're in a situation where we have a country that is split on a linguistic, cultural basis and also on a political basis now. So we have a region of the country that will obviously, if Russia recognizes the results, will fall under Russia's sphere of influence, which it already has been. So in a situation where if Russia's intentions were to undermine Ukrainian power, recognizing the elections in the People's Republics of Donetsk and Luhansk will get to that result.
We'll get to that result. Do stay with us, Gabrielle. Hopefully we'll have a bit more time. But Ruthie Sinai, I want to ask you this. Does this mean, I mean, it's such controversial remarks, which we're used to in the Middle East, but does this mean that Russia has given up on the whole of the Ukraine?
I really don't understand what kind of game they're playing, because on the one hand, as mentioned before, they came out and welcomed the results of last Sunday's elections, in which favored the pro-Western parties,
right.
Basically, kicked out the communists for the first time in history from the Ukrainian parliament and so on, and Svoboda, the nationalist party, was left with very few votes. So very much sort of a liberal Western-looking
and hopeful
results.
Saying maybe this thing is finally over.
Yeah. And you have the Russians then, welcoming this and saying it's going to be good for peace and stability. And then, not a day goes by when Lavrov comes out and says, we're going to recognize the other guys too. So I really don't understand what kind of game they're playing. Maybe we can ask Gabrielle.
No, Gabrielle, what is the chatter behind the scenes in that respect? Because as you mentioned, there's this moment of hope a week ago, and now, but next week, if the separatists win, then Russia, as I asked before, clearly not saying, we're going to come out with tanks and support them, but what are they trying to do? Split the Ukraine in half? And what is what are the theories behind those words? Where you're sitting at in Moscow?
Well, Russia has to balance many interests, many partners in a situation. Russia cannot say to the pro-Russian separatists of eastern Ukraine, we are not going to recognize the results. They have always campaigned for the federalization of Ukraine, meaning more power to the regions. Yet they have lots of players in this game right now, and Russia has to balance the interests. Yes, it is a good thing to recognize the results of the Ukrainian election. Because they need some kind of government with which they can have some kind of dialogue on many issues, including the supply of gas and other energy issues. But we're in a situation where Sergei Lavrov is speaking not only to the world, not only to the government of Ukraine, but also to his population, who supports very often the pro-Russian separatists of eastern Ukraine, thinking that they've been, throughout the past decades, abused by the Ukrainian government and that they belong to Russia. So Sergei Lavrov here is in a situation where he's juggling all these balls here, and he has to keep different partnerships afloat. So it's a tough situation for him, but we get some kind of result that's a little bit mixed up.
Yeah. I can't feel too empathetic towards him. I think it's a bit irresponsible. I think he could come out and say, yes, we support federalism and yes, we support autonomy, but that you have to understand that the central government in Kiev is it, and not to say, yes, we're going to recognize. I mean, there's ways of saying it without coming out and abandoning your Russian-speaking population in the East.
No, I mean, we have very, very, very little time, but if I may chime in my controversial way and say that this is very reminiscent of the Israeli coalition. In some ways.
Yeah, with everybody, singing a different tune and
singing different tunes,
pulling
in every direction. But very good, analysis and to shed light on this story. Gabrielle, thank you for joining us from Moscow. Ruthie Sinai, always such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And when we get back, for the first time in Israel, this is huge, people. 100 unique cats from around the world will take part in an exhibition that will be a cat lover's paradise. I urge you to stay with us. First, some more of the morning news. Good morning, and thank you for staying with us. I-24 News, October 29th, and this is a very, 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 very exciting day. Now, I don't know even how to begin to say this in terms of how exciting this is, because there is a show that is going to be in Tel Aviv this weekend. It's a first ever cat show. 100 amazing different breeds of cats will be attending an international I think, like Best in Show, Cat Show, in the city of Tel Aviv. And for that specific reason, and only for that reason, we are very, very, very glad to be joined in studio. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Alon, and I'm a cat breeder. I breed Persian cats for about 16 years, and I'm going to participate in the show.
In the show. Now, before we begin with, with the essence of the show, I'm sorry, I'm having such a huge moment here. I'm finding it hard to find words. Listen, I'm a huge cat lover. Before we start, I have to show you something, which I hope we can show here. For the last 10 years, I have been owned by an amazing Bengal cat who I brought with me from New York. His name is Mongo. Okay, do we have a picture of Mongo? Is Mongo around? Can we show Mongo? Anybody?
Candygram for Mongo.
Candygram for Mongo. Is Mongo shown? Anybody? Well, clearly, I don't know if we can see Mongo, but I have a Bengal cat at home, okay, who doesn't even come close. Doesn't come close to these two. Now, tell me a little bit about the show.
Well, the show is actually from the TICA Association. It's the International Cat Association. It's an international association dedicated both to purebred cats and non-purebred cats. And we basically display all the breeds of cats that are represented by TICA. Now, the Bengals is one breed, the cat that you own.
That I have.
And the Persians are a different breed, and they're extremely, extremely different from one another in shape and form. The association has standards for each breed about how the ideal cat of each breed should look in character and physical looks.
Right.
And they are judged according to these standards.
And I mean, we have some cat pictures coming up right now of, I mean, clearly that's a Persian, isn't it?
No, the first one was a ragdoll, and that's actually an Abyssinian.
Okay.
That's a Sphinx, and that's a Devon Rex.
You know your cats, man.
Wow. And that's a Persian, like
that's
the ones we have.
That's exactly like him.
Yep.
I think that might be a Bengal. I don't know where my Bengal is because
that's actually a Likoi. That's a very rare breed, the one that we just passed by. It's a wolf cat. There are only 19 cats all over the world of that breed.
I want to show you one breed. Hold on. There's a picture of an amazing breed. Here it comes up. 1 second. Let's show a Bengal that is like a god Bengal. There we go.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. There we go. Okay, 15 seconds of fame for the Bengal known as Mongo. And Mongo, eyes open.
He's adorable.
Isn't he adorable?
Regal. Majestic.
Majestic. Thank you very much. He's majestic. But I want to talk a little bit about you guys. So every breed is a different breed.
Yeah.
These two.
Yes.
Persians.
Yes.
What are their, I mean, the white one called?
The one, first of all, let's introduce them by name.
Please.
The one is called Clover. His name is Clover. And the little one is called Nessie. That's a short for a more fancy name. She's called in her pedigree Blue Jasmine because we love the movie.
Blue Jasmine is a great movie. I know. Does Nessie want to come to me? I'm not sure.
Oh, sure. She'd love coming to you. One of the unique traits of this breed, beyond their beautiful looks, is that they're very, very calm. They're very good with children. They love to be held in the hands. The character of every breed is slightly different.
Right.
That's a part of the difference between them. And the uniqueness of these two is that not only Persians. Clover is an odd-eyed Persian. I don't know if the camera shows it, but he has two different colors to his eyes.
It's blue and brown.
And
you're still
Nessie,
beautiful yourself. Yeah.
Nessie is a bicolor. You can see that she has two colors of her coat. She has white and another color. That's called a bicolor Persian, which is a unique division within the Persian breed.
Now, in a show as such, because I know Tony's wondering, in a show as such, when the cats are displayed, I mean, it's a competition in many ways.
Yes,
also.
Not in many ways. I think the central essence of the show that it's a competition.
Okay.
It's important to emphasize, though, on one hand, it's a beauty competition, but not only a beauty competition.
So how are the cats judged?
Okay.
Essentially, yeah.
So essentially, each breed has its own breed standards,
right,
which says in very detailed way how the cat should look like, but also how it should behave in character. And how it should be in health.
Have you ever won? Have your cats won?
Yes. Actually, 2 years ago, Clover's father, who is a copper-eyed Persian, won the whole show.
Where? Where was that?
That was also in Tel Aviv. I forgot exactly the address of the show. We won the whole show. Yeah, we were best cat in Chatulia, the actual show that we're doing now.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I think I'm scaring Nessie. And for a show like this, because you breed cats, and you know, you're basically, it clearly is your life's passion.
Yes.
I don't know what you do for a living.
I'm a salesperson.
You're a salesperson. And how hard is it to take care of cats that are bred and are show cats? And
it really depends on the breed. Actually, this breed is one of the more difficult ones to care for. Not they behave really nicely, but because of this luxurious coat, as you can feel, it's very, very cottony. The maintenance of this coat is not easy. It takes a lot of baths, a lot of investment in the coat, and of course in their nutrition to keep the coat as it is and the general conditions where the cats live. So it's not easy.
Listen, she is so soft. I have to say, and she's purring right now. I have to say, you have to say goodbye to Nessie because not just a second, she's never coming back home.
Well,
she's going home with me. Nessie's coming home.
Everybody's in love with Nessie, but she already has a new home, and I guess that her dedicated mom that will take her in a month or so would be very angry if she hears they want to take her away.
With me. Now, question about that: you breed cats and then they are sold off. These are very expensive cats, also, aren't they?
They're not cheap. They're sold, but I must admit, many people think that we do this for profit. The answer is absolutely no, because most of the money that we get from kittens we sell go to the maintenance of the cattery, which is very, very expensive. So it barely covers its costs. So that's a myth that we make any money out of the cats. It's a completely pure hobby and passion.
I'm glad to hear it because, truth be told, Mongo, my Bengal, was purchased in New York for a ridiculous amount of money. I think Nessie here wants to read the news. She might be heading straight to she might be heading straight to Anthony. So Mongo, for example, cost $1,000 for a Bengal, which at that moment, people are going to think I'm insane right now. Wait a second. Nessie is moving. And Nessie,
I can have Nessie back if you want.
Oh, Nessie, look at Nessie. Nessie would like to tell you the news today in the Ukraine. But essentially, I think news would be much better if cats would read it.
We should have them all the time. They calm us down. That's one of the traits of cats.
They're like tranquilizers.
They're tranquilizers. And the judges that come in, that I heard that the judges coming into this show are very world-renowned judges. This is actually the first ever show at that level in Tel Aviv, right?
Yes, that's true. That's true. The judges that are coming, they're coming from, we have a French judge, which is a very high-level judge in Tika. His name is Pascal Remy. He's very known to be a very, very showy judge. He presents the cats in a stylish, chic kind of French way. And we also have a Japanese judge. Her name is Tomoko Vlach. She now resides in Germany, but she's Japanese by origin, and she comes to the show. She wears her traditional Japanese clothes, and her demeanor with the cat is amazing because she's very soothing. All the cats are very relaxed on her judging table, and she's also an expert judge. Excellent judges we have this time.
Soothing Japanese woman judge. I like that.
Yes.
Listen, Alon, stay with us. We're moving on to the next segment, but I'm having I don't even want to say the word, such a moment here schmoozing your cat. I'm very calm.
And she's very calm.
She's very calm.
Yes.
She's purring. Tony's here with the everyday. We have a spiral. I'm being very blasé. We have a spiral viral that is the web review. The spiral viral that is the web review. Hold on, I'm not going to fall asleep.
Do you want me to take it from here?
Yeah, take it from here.
All right, you do the cat thing.
And Nessie's listening.
Nessie's listening, and as we all should, cats people, to some social media tips which have come down our way from no less a personage than Kim Kardashian.
Kim Kardashian?
Yes. Talk about a spiral viral. Well, Kim Kardashian was actually at a...
Much prettier than Kim Kardashian.
Well, we'll get to looks in a moment. But for the moment... But yeah, no, of course. Yes. There was a conference in some Half Moon Bay, California, with Kim Kardashian actually talking about something that was not related to just publicity for herself. So it's actually kind of a bombshell. Yeah.
And what did she speak about?
Social media tips. And she has a few, and I'm going to list all of them right now.
Please do.
Okay. Here's 3 out of the 5.
3 out of 5.
She says that you should use Twitter as your Google.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Yes,
so that's
like everything that's wrong with the world.
Yeah, okay, so that
Twitter is your Google.
And then she says, don't be weird and post more than 3 pictures from one location on Instagram.
That's coming from Kim Kardashian.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's that. I think that's really. And she says wearable tech is not cute. And
actually, I agree with that.
Yes.
Wearable tech is
not cute.
Not cute.
No, it's just too geeky. Because we're talking about Kim Kardashian, people were also focused on what she was wearing at the conference.
What was she wearing?
Well, she was wearing something that was quite revealing of her sort of semi-braless situation. So.
Oh God!
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So let's just say that there could have been one of those. We're not saying wardrobe malfunction, but basically people were focused on the cleavage aspect.
On the cleavage aspect. Never an essence with Nessie. Nessie never
there you go.
It
was,
there we go. Oh my God.
It was a nipple
She got
flash.
2 stars.
No, those were for illustrative purposes only.
Illustrative purposes only.
Yeah.
By the way, Kim Kardashian, do you know that Kim Kardashian owned a Persian?
Really?
She did. So maybe that's a tip. That's a tip that she should give, that people should own Persians because they're extremely stylish.
Well, now Kim Kardashian, she's not of she's of partial Armenian.
Armenian, right?
Are there
not
Armenian
Persian.
cats?
No,
Yes.
actually, I don't think there is an Armenian. We have Persians, but not Armenians yet.
Speaking of which, interesting point. Sorry to stop you during the overview. Why are Persians called Persians?
Yeah.
Because
Right?
they say that the long coat that they have
Right.
originated from Persia, and that peddlers and salespeople actually were taking this specific beautiful coat to Europe from Persia. So that's why the breed is called Persian.
Got you.
Okay.
As we move along, though, Tony, I need you have to touch this little thing for a second.
Oh, it's making me think about Julia Roberts. Julia
And
Roberts.
what about Julia Roberts?
He likes redheads.
Julia Roberts. Yes, who doesn't? She says that she risked her career by opting out of plastic surgery.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, we need to see that.
Yeah, because the whole Renee Zellweger flap, it's opened up the doors to so much conversation about should stars go to plastic surgeons or not. And,
Right.
and Julia Roberts says she's actually risked her career by, my goodness, by not having cosmetic surgery. Oh, you little gremlin.
I know, here, gremlin. Here, little gremlin.
It's like Gizmo from the movie. Oh,
It
Claus.
is Gizmo.
We actually had a
Claus.
kitten called Gizmo.
Yes.
So she has not done anything
She has
to
not, and she is the beauty ambassador for Lancôme.
Nice.
And she has worked out a deal that
Hopefully.
she's going to be an aging model with Lancôme, and they have to keep her till she's 50, no plastic surgery, and kudos to her, I guess,
No,
for
completely
the au
kudos to her. I've got
naturel
nothing
look.
nasty to say.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, amen. Yeah. I'm holding a
she's
cat.
still
and
a
I've got
pretty
nothing-
woman.
Ka-ching.
Yeah.
And
ISIS.
From Julia Roberts to ISIS?
from Julia Roberts to ISIS.
Well, there's more.
with a cat in her hands. Okay.
I don't want to be catty.
Yes, don't be catty, but
But a Belgian chocolatier
yes.
has changed its name from ISIS to Liebert.
Can you blame him?
No. So there's that. That's how they look. And also there's, that show, Downton Abbey. I'm mispronouncing it.
Downton Abbey,
whatever.
yeah,
They have
Downton Abbey.
They have a dog on the show named Isis, and so there's things they're talking that they might kill off the dog on the show.
On the show.
To
Yes.
avoid ISIS-related nomenclature issues.
Which makes me that makes me wonder. Actually, maybe ISIS got their name from Downton Abbey because they really like the show.
Now
Yes.
that
I'm
is
reaching out, but I'm petting a cat.
too much catnip.
Too much catnip, exactly. Way too much catnip right here. Hairs all over the place. And what else?
We talked a little bit about Taylor Swift yesterday, and I
Right.
said that she's New York's global tourism ambassador is a little bit off because she has a very thin connection to New York City. Well, apparently now New Yorkers of all stripes are really jumping on this sort of anti-Taylor Swift bandwagon.
And it started right here.
It started right here.
We start trends, just so you know.
Listen,
sorry,
cats,
the cat has just sat on my
New York
pen.
ambassadors.
Yes.
You remember Dee Snider from Twisted Sister?
Yes.
He's from Queens.
Amen.
He says if you want someone for New York, call Jerry Seinfeld.
Very true. Call somebody who was born not 5 seconds
Who
ago.
knows something of the zeitgeist.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thank
Does Taylor
you.
Swift even know what a zeitgeist is?
I
don't know.
Great point.
Okay.
Yeah, you came to actually we're the cats and bitches.
This is the catty hour.
Bitchy. Yeah, this is the bitchy hour.
There's nothing bitchy about cats.
There is nothing bitchy. Yes. Moving along.
Now, would you live vlog a child's birth?
No.
Okay.
And speaking
Yeah,
as someone,
Robbie-
as someone who went through, but no, I would never.
Robbie Williams, who is one of Britain's leading pop singers.
Yeah,
he
very
live
much
vlogged his wife Ida's labor, and it was causing a bit of a stir.
Is she still married to him? Because I mean,
he's like, she's amazing. She loves her. Of course, it's great.
Look at that. Welcome, son, after live vlogging wife's labor.
Yeah.
And and the byline would be now divorced, Robbie Williams.
I mean, I think he should focus on the music.
I think you should focus on the
and
music.
let her
completely.
I think, yeah.
No, I can tell just not even bringing the cat out in me. If my husband tried to do anything remotely that way, it would be. We would be hurling little Nessie at him. Nessie's not going to be hurled. I promise you alone. Nessie's not going to be hurled.
My goodness.
Yes, moving along.
Okay, the Kylie Jenner lip scandal is continuing.
Yes.
Okay. Apparently, Kylie Jenner may or may not have had some injections to her lips, and she's telling everyone to stop talking about them. But you really can't, because do the lips like that really belong on a teenager? If they're artificial.
If they're artificial.
If they're natural, that's one thing. But if you look at some before and after pictures, it does look like there may have been some work done.
I mean, Sally, I got to say, this looks like 80% lips, 20% face. But yeah.
I mean, this is like out Angelina's Jolie.
It does. It's the Angelina Jolie. Yeah. Sadly, all the time we've got 20 seconds. So there we go. Let's say goodbye to everybody. Do stay with us. We're not saying goodbye to the show. Alone, you're amazing. When we get back, hold on. When we get back, we are going to tell you a little bit more economy news. But first, the headlines of today. Thank you. Good morning. It is October 29th, 2014. We had cats on the show.
I saw them outside.
You saw them outside. I'm like, I'm realizing I've got hairs all over my face. But
one of them matched my coloring. I
did.
I felt connected.
Nessie.
Yes.
Nessie looked like she was your daughter.
That was her name.
That
Nessie,
was her name,
yes.
Nessie. Yeah, a tiny little Nessie cat.
I'm glad to know.
We're here with Daniel Roth from The Economy magazine and the amazing Laetitia Loreni. We're going to start with Daniel because it was his daughter cat thingy that was here before.
Yes.
But for the economy news, anything, everything, what do you have for me today?
So here in Israel, there's a crackdown on black market trading, on kind of what they're trying to do publicly, anyways. The public face of it is keep tax revenues flowing, and between 10 and 13 million dollars a year is lost in sort of unreported currency exchanges and trades and market. So it's now the country is trying to crack down. It's one of the small ways in which they're trying to do this.
Crack down on tax evaders, and we have a report which we're going to take a look at right now. Take a look.
Up to 20% of Israel's economy exists off the books in a so-called shadow economy of hard-to-trace cash and checks, according to a report from the Prime Minister's office. It is estimated that the state is losing between $10 and $13 million in tax revenue, as tax evasion is made easier when using cash to hide from authorities. The Israeli government is aiming to reduce the amount of black market traffic within its purview by pushing electronic transactions rather than cash or checks. Included in the list of measures are moves to reduce fees on debit card use, setting a maximum amount for cash and check transactions, the latter which will be capped at 1 million shekels, and banning blank checks from use. The Israeli cabinet has already approved the set of measures to limit the use of cash in Israel, but the unanimous decision will be brought in front of the Knesset for a vote before it is in place as law.
Okay, first of all, Daniel, how much money has been lost in for the country of Israel when it comes to tax evasion?
Yeah, so tax evasion is one side of the story, and somewhere over $10 million a year is lost. Now, this is peanuts. This is the interesting thing. It's peanuts compared to what's lost in sort of the corporate tax cut world.
Exactly.
So cracking down on individuals is maybe okay. Maybe in the case of wealthy individuals, it's a good thing because you're talking about big money trades that people aren't reporting, a lot of money lost.
But on the corporate level, we're talking millions, right? We're talking
essentially anything that doesn't include corporate tax evasion, which is essentially not tax evasion because it's legalized, is too little too late. And that's one of the interesting things about this. You talk to tax experts and they say, it may help a little bit, but when you're not talking about corporations, you're not talking about the big money.
Right.
And it's to be expected, of course, from neoliberal government.
So what is the point of this then? I mean, because I know that every citizen in Israel, for example, is freaking out right now that, they're going to be tapped in, or wealthy citizens, et cetera, et cetera. But as you mentioned, if this is just a drop in the bucket and they're not addressing the big corporations, then what's the point?
Well, okay, so they're kind of squeezing from two ends. From one end, they're trying to get people in small transactions to use trackable methods Right. So using your debit card, using credit cards, these are trackable. You can track someone so that if they're involved in criminal offenses or terror or tax evasion, whatever it is, you can get that individual. That's on one side. On the other side, they're trying to clamp down on the big situations, and it doesn't really work is the problem, because if you get a contractor to your home and they say, look, I'm going to charge you $9,000 instead of $12,000, that way we both save on taxes.
Exactly, and it's all under the table, blah, blah, yeah.
This doesn't solve that. This doesn't solve that at all. At the same time, what this is doing, from one end, it's helping credit card and banks, because it's forcing people into those systems, paying those fees. On the other hand, there's huge swaths of the Israeli population that simply culturally don't involve themselves up until now in credit cards and banks.
That was my next question. What about the people, because as you said, do not use credit cards.
Right.
How do you track them?
So this is kind of trying to rake everyone into a trackable system.
Right.
Which again, it's from one hand, it's okay if it's trying to get everyone to pay their fair share, but of course we're talking about a solution that doesn't include corporations.
And truth be told, the people who don't use, a bulk of the people who don't use credit cards is because they're not approved. Because they can't really afford to,
Right, and they shouldn't have to.
Have to be tracked in the way, exactly, in that way.
It's an interesting question, because why are we forcing people who don't use credit cards, don't use bank accounts, to use those things? That's the whole reason we have currency.
Right.
And so they say it's very similar to a lot of debates, and this may take it out of the economic realm, out of that realm that some people may not feel connected to, and into the realm of other issues, political issues. They say it's for security, that it's to ensure that people are paying their taxes and to ensure nobody's involved in terrorism. But is it really about that, or is it really about kind of tracking people? Is it about making sure that there's kind of easy ways to see what's going on with the metadata that's out there?
No, I know it's a very. I'm about to say that's a very Snowden way of thinking.
Right. Well, we're in a post-Snowden age.
No,
it's a question we all have to ask.
No, completely. It's a question that we all have to ask, because it isn't that really what is behind it. Was the terminology of also to track terrorist activity used when this was launched?
Yeah. So, for example, in the news pieces that came out about this in the last few days about this initiative, this is the language. It's also about tax evasion, but it's also don't forget terrorism. Can't forget terrorism.
Unbelievable. And when is this starting, or has it already started?
Right now, it's in the process of being approved by the Knesset.
The Israeli Parliament, right?
Yeah, by the Israeli Parliament, and so we'll see. If it happens, it doesn't seem to be a huge debate about whether it will happen or not, partly because people aren't asking.
And as the debate, is there, I'm assuming this is raising controversy. There is some uprising against it. Now, is there organizations that are saying that this weakens the poor, doesn't it, in some ways?
Yeah, it makes it harder, essentially, to be poor.
Because they didn't have it, hard enough. Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of saying, okay, middle-class people, wealthy people, you keep doing what you're doing, only use less cash. We'll make it a little easier to use your debit card. We'll make it a little easier on you to be tracked.
Right.
People who haven't been tracked previously, now you have to change the way you live, to fit this new reality that we're putting in place. And there hasn't been
And what
a
if they
huge...
can't change the way of the way they live to change, to fit that reality? They're off the grid?
Well, they'll be somewhat off the grid, and to some extent that exists in every economy. That there's black markets, big and small. That's something that will never go away. Certainly not through sort of half measures of kind of clamping down and creating electronic systems.
Oh no, fascinating stuff, interesting and somewhat depressing, if I may just say so.
Yeah, it is a little depressing.
It is a little depressing, right, Daniel? I love that you bring us depressing stuff in the morning, and that's why That's why, we bring in Laetitia Loani to lift things up.
To balance.
Yeah, exactly, to balance. Plus, she isn't as gorgeous as you.
Well,
but
and I don't have a cat daughter.
Yeah, not everyone can have a cat daughter.
Not everyone can have a cat daughter. Cats rule, people. Do not knock cats down. If I had it my way, cats would be anchoring the show. Yes, and Laetitia Loani is the I-24 News cinema correspondent, knows everything and anything and everything that goes on in the film world. What is going on?
I don't know if I know everything, but I know about this particular movie that I'm bringing today. It's an Iranian film made by a very young director, Anna Lili Amirpour. The movie is called A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. It's extremely special. I want to talk about it, but first let's take a look at it.
Let's take a look at it.
Cheers.
نصفشامی کجا بودی؟ دختر در تاریکی کن دقت
منو نمیدونی
چیزی که میبینی
First of all, as a former film student myself, I have to say, the use of black and white. What's amazing to me about this is, directed by a woman. I think there's very little we know about Iran, and we like to use rhetoric and cliches, and this breaks it apart.
Breaks it completely. It's a very special film. As I said, made by an Iranian woman. It hasn't been shot in Iran, even though the movie is set in Iran. It has been shot in California for many reasons. First of all, it's very hard to make a movie in Iran because of the censorship of the government. Yes. You cannot show skin, you cannot show alcohol, you cannot show cigarettes. You cannot even play rock and roll in Iran.
Can this still be considered an Iranian movie, or she's...
Well, she's
Iranian.
She was born in Iran. She cannot go back after making a movie like this. She's banned from Iran.
What is the movie about? A girl walks home alone.
So it's a story about a vampire, a woman that's a vampire that's going to basically suck out the blood of all the scums that she finds. It's extremely weird because it's not only a vampire movie, but it's also some kind of western. It mixes noir and horror and thriller and comedy. It mixes it all, but in a very, very, very delicate way. It's her first movie. She's a fan of graphics. This director, she actually made a graphic novel out of this movie, and she's changing.
Because when you say graphic novels, the first thing that comes to mind is it's going to have vampires, or it's going to have some,
Well, this is exactly. It kind of looks like it's like a Sin City meets Quentin Tarantino meets. It's very, very special.
And what's empowering about it that this is an Iranian woman who is making a film about a woman who can actually suck the blood out of men,
and who's using her chador to fly like a superhero.
Oh,
which is
nice.
Cool. Which is cool.
So she flies with her. The thing that is so controversial in so many places in the world.
Oh, she broke all the stigma. Like she just made.
You're talking about the controversy of whether vampires can fly.
Of course, that's a huge controversy. Exactly.
Yes.
Because I'm sorry, they cannot. Well, let's have a debate about this. But interesting that she's taking all these themes. What do we know about her? She left Iran as a young woman.
We don't know a lot about her. We know right now we're going to hear about more and more about the movie. She did left Iran and made the movie in California. She went to Sundance with this movie. Went to the American Film Festival in Deauville in France. And I believe that it's coming out very soon in America. So I think people are going to hear about it more and more. And as soon as she'll have international release, then it will definitely be some. We need Quentin Tarantino to come out like he did for the Wolf movie, Israeli movie. We need him to come out and say this is my favorite movie of 2015,
and then that's it. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to work for the opening in Tehran, but still, we've got that. And what else?
What else? Jennifer Aniston. Aniston is ugly in a movie, which is a very
that was very dramatic.
Very also special.
But no, she's not. You take that back.
Well, she made herself. She left a vanity in the closet.
In the closet,
and she made this film called Cake. Which is this is just from another movie, but it's Jennifer Aniston being pretty.
This is a movie of hers. Here she's very pretty.
We don't have a trailer for Cake yet. It's a story about a woman that went into a car accident, a crash, and she's completely disfigured, scarred, and she actually gained a lot of weight for the movie. She's addicted to narcotics and painkillers. She's gonna fall in love with some guy that is widowed and lost his wife, and she's obsessed with the vision of his past wife, of his dead wife. It's a very dark movie, especially, Jennifer Aniston is usually used to comedies and to romantic comedies, and lately we see a change. She's trying to be legitimate towards the opinion. Not only
slightly more, I would say probably character roles, a little bit more, but interesting. First of all, usually, and Daniel being of American persuasion, when American actresses do that, they're winking at an Oscar nomination, right?
Yes. Well,
yeah, they're winking at an Oscar. Who was it? Charlize Theron. Who went.
Even Reese Witherspoon actually. Reese Witherspoon has been, but she was set as the new, girl next door, funny, with Legally Blonde, and then eventually she got the Oscar for Walk the Line. It wasn't like it wasn't this formed character role.
But it was just not the cutesy blonde.
Yeah, exactly. And
maybe
so
blonde
it actually
is not. Yeah, maybe blonde is passe. Who knows? Okay.
Oscar buzz on Jennifer Aniston though.
Yes.
And what would be funny is that this year Angelina Jolie could also be nominated for Maleficent. So they can 10 years later the revenge.
We had cats in the studio first, and now we have them again. And so Angelina Jolie, if she's might be nominated for
Maleficent as an actress, and then as a director for Unbroken, the movie she shot about this the old man in Indonesia, I believe.
I think it was Indonesia. That would be interesting.
Yeah, and Brad Pitt for Furry. Wow, the three of them.
Sitting
trio,
there. Will
triangle.
that ever go away? I wonder how long has this been?
I think
not as long as we're here.
Not as long as we're here. This will stick around like the Middle East conflict, folks. And yet, sadly, all the time we have today. Leticia Loani, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Daniel Roth, I live for you. Thank you for coming once a week. I'm happy to have been with us. Of course, don't forget to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and tune in tomorrow morning for another morning edition to start your day, because maybe we'll have dogs. You never know. There we go. Yeah.